Today is, I'm pretty sure this is one of my favorite days ever in my life because today is the day that I get to introduce the contributing authors to our new book, Messages from Beyond the Sun, which has launched and is into the world. And I'm so eager to introduce you, our readers, to the authors because these are a bunch of very special women. And the first person I have with us today is Judy Eggleston. And Judy is in Nebraska. And so I want to welcome you to the Author Spotlight podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we're here. I know,
Yeah,
isn't
me
it so
too.
fun?
It's,
I know.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit about your long history as a businesswoman and kind of give us a bird's eye view of what you've done with your life so far?
And a bird's eye view is appropriate because first part of my life, I thought I was going to be a pilot. And that's a story in the book as well. But the Vietnam War was winding down. We were flooded with pilots on the market. So I continued on in a career. I got my master's of accountancy when we lived in Washington, D.C. Fortunate enough to graduate top my class and went to work for the largest accounting firm in D.C. Very conservative, very interesting introduction for me into the corporate world. And it probably set the stage for the rest of my business career. We got to rotate through the company in different areas. I like taxation and I like startup businesses. So those two kind of matched up together, and I made a career out of working in tax and startup businesses and worked up and down the Dulles tech corridor, mostly when we lived in Washington, D.C. Later on, we always knew that we were going to inherit the family business. My sister and I both have business skills and are business women. So it was fun to come back. We retired out of D.C. in 2005. So it's almost 20 years that I've been back here at the ranch. And I use those skills every day. I read in the book on how to use intuition, and I use it for as a discernment tool for making decisions, for making business decisions and other decisions about my life. But it's an important aspect to realize and to utilize all the tools, all the talents. And right now, we're having a good fun living out here and running a family farm and ranch. That's a brief bio.
You all were just named Farm Family of the Year as well, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. That was a surprise and a lot of fun, and it was fun putting together the farm family history and getting to present that. We have a lot of pictures, historical pictures, and so that was fun and a nice honor. So I've thanked the community a number of different times for picking us.
One of the things that I so love and appreciate about you, Judy, is that you are very accomplished. You're very bright. Obviously, you're a numbers person. You probably can see patterns pretty well. And you already mentioned it. You have this native intuition that is pretty rare, I find, especially in accountancy and in the upper echelons of business. I think everybody has intuition, but the difference is nobody talks about it. And you have started talking about your intuition. What's that been like for you? Come out of the
woodwork.
Out of the woodwork as somebody who
I don't think most corporations would appreciate if I started talking about numbers talk to me, but they do, so that's okay.
Is that right? No, wait, stop there for a second. So numbers talk to you? Like, tell me more about that.
I hear things as numbers. I'm reading a document. It's go to page 3, paragraph 2. I don't read the document. I just go to page 3, paragraph 2. So that would be one way that I would utilize my intimate relationship with the number world.
I love that. I love knowing that too, because I think that I was in corporate for a long time, not as long as you, but I've been in corporate for a long time. And one of the things I know is that a lot of people have intuition, but hardly anybody wants to talk about it. And really it continues to be the thing that operates behind the scenes that doesn't get a lot of street credit, that doesn't get a lot of attention, because the focus is still on hard work and grit and thinking and that kind of energy around the rational mind. How have you integrated your intuition, even more recently as you've been back on the family farm?
It's back on the family farm. It's been a little easier because I'm working in nature, and that's a very easy area to integrate with your intuition and to, in some ways, communicate with the elements around me. I'm going to go back to the corporate world for just a second because almost every successful CEO, upper management person I've ever worked with has a sense of intuition, and we never talk about it. In fact, I think most times you can't hire an intuitive, a psychic, which I don't hold myself out to be, to come into your corporate boardroom, but you can hire a CPA to come in, and there's never a question asked. I would say that most of us get asked to participate in things. One, we have very credible backgrounds and credentials. The other thing, we have that sixth sense of intuition, and we just have the ability to know things when are on target or not. And in the world of startup businesses, that's a very key aspect, to have a sense, I'll even just call it a sense or an intuition about what business ideas will be successful and which ones might not. Or how do you take a business idea and use your intuition to help guide it on a path to be successful? So that was a very interesting career. I called it enlightened business for a while, but that part, I still do some of that. I still do a small amount of consulting, but right now we're basically semi-retired and living back out on our property in central Nebraska. It's a family, I live on a family historic site. My sister lives at our farm location. We both are businesswomen. We both have credentials, Ann in finance, mine in accounting, and probably not many farmers out here manage their agriculture or their fields by marginal rates of return, but we do. So that makes us, not only are we minority farmers being females, we're capable businesswomen.
I know, I love
which
that
makes
about
it
you guys.
interesting.
I love that about you guys. I had an opportunity to come and spend a couple of days with you on a road trip I was on, and went in the hot air balloon with you and got to be on the ranch with you. So that was quite a remarkable experience to be able to see you in your natural habitat.
Thank you.
So congratulations on being one of the contributing authors on Messages from Beyond the Sun. I'm so honored and grateful that you are part of this project. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you decided to engage in the project in the first place?
I initially engaged, and of course, intuition played a part in that, but I initially engaged because I thought it was going to be about me writing my book. I don't think I quite realized in the very beginning that it was a collaborative effort, which I found later on to be more interesting and more exciting about writing a couple chapters in a book, particularly when you pick the topic beyond the sun. And my version of that theory is there's nothing new under the sun. Let's write beyond the sun. So I hope I've contributed some things in my two chapters that are beyond the sun, or at least somewhat beyond the sun, that people don't write about in everyday writings. And I thought that was a lot of fun. Also, being the elder stateswoman for the group, this is my first time being a published author. It's exciting. It's exciting to think that you're never too old to do something new. Even as we went for a hot air balloon ride this summer, I'd never been in a hot air balloon. We sponsored the event, but it's the first time I've actually gone up in one. So I think it's interesting. I think if you say a course for yourself to have an interesting life, it's nice to know that aspect never changes. You can have an interesting life
at any age, for sure. This was an author development program, with the book being the capstone experience. So this is a different project than some of the projects you might see advertised about just becoming a best-selling author or something like that. Frankly, I feel like that those projects are a dime a dozen at this point. And of course, we're going to do the best-selling campaign and all of those things. But from a development perspective, as an author, basically becoming an author, what were some of the things that you had to overcome in terms of your trajectory to getting these chapters completed?
I think the first thing, second thing, probably third thing even, was what am I going to write about? How am I going to write? What am I going to write about that people might want to read, that would not just be your usual copy material? And I sat with that as we went through the course for quite a while. And I have to say, it's really more towards the end of the group that all of a sudden everything just started setting up for me and the words just started to flow. For a long time, I wondered if I was even going to be able to contribute. So,
Really, I didn't know that. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
I hide anxiety.
You keep your cards close to your vest.
I do, but
So you had to overcome wondering if you even had something to contribute.
If I had something to contribute. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, it really started to flow. I'm the person that says, why can't you just be perfect the first time out of the box? I learned a little bit of patience in this, about going back and doing some rewrites and making sense so things would flow a little more even. And so here's the joke on me part of it. I went into this thinking I was going to write my own book. And then I found out it was a collaborative effort. And I go, I'm not writing my own book. The thing that's interesting is this is setting me up to write my own book. Mm-hmm. So yes. It truly is an author development. And it was a lot of fun to participate in. So we'll see what book comes next.
I know. That's the thing about this. I've been a writer for my whole life, you guys. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time and wrote clinical study reports and protocols and INDs and NDAs and all the things. And Judy, I think you were somebody early on when I was talking about my writing experience, when you raised your hand and said, can you teach us how to do that?
Yes.
And so I'm always appreciative when people who I trust and who I love to work with come to me with a question. And that was an easy yes for me, because I've always had it in my vision that I would have a publishing division in my company, the home of the angels, Engelheim. And I didn't want it to be just another publishing house that churns out books. I want to really honor the voices of the women who are both very accomplished in their traditional fields and also have a level of intuitive intelligence or spiritual intelligence that sort of goes beyond average, for sure. So that was the point of this, is to get you guys to be more confident in expressing yourselves and showing up as writers, as authors. And I think that we accomplished that. What are your thoughts as I was sharing that part?
I'm just nodding in agreement. I couldn't agree more. It's interesting. This is probably the second time I've written something in my life that has changed the course of direction in my life. When I was 16, I wrote a paper, a history of aviation paper, and I won a scholarship. The scholarship was the money for my private pilot's license, and that changed my whole perspective on life and career for quite a while. This is going to change me to be a writer. I have to go back and laugh. I hope wherever Betty is up in heaven somewhere that she's watching this, because she was my senior English teacher. And she said, I think you're meant to be a writer, but she says, I don't know how to relate to you. So yeah, it's a little later in life. And I think I'm ready to say I'm a writer. I'm ready to sit down, write what I'm to write about. I knew from in my teenage years that probably what I was going to do later in life would be on my path and what I'm to do. And this writing project has kicked that off. So
I love that. I
yeah,
love that. I wanted to know if you'd be willing to read a little bit of one of your chapters for us.
sure. And I picked the very beginning because I think it set the stage. And I said, the cool, crisp air flowed gently over the top and through the tent. I was in heaven, camped out in our farm's backyard, a state of bliss for a 7-year-old farm girl in nature. A monarch butterfly flew in and landed on my pillow. A morning chat for the day ahead. My guide for the day led me through the grass and trees, a wondrous state of joy and curiosity. Following a thing of beauty and an elegant grace flying in front of me, chatting about her surroundings. I sat and leaned on the bark of an elm tree, and my butterfly landed on my leg. We talked about her life and what it was like to be a butterfly. I felt the tree chuckle in agreement, and he joined us. His life was full of history. How he started as the wind carried his winged seed, and this is where it landed. Soon followed rain, helping him connect to the earth. And the moisture provided a perfect bed for him to begin growing where he was sitting now. Little did I know, later in life, I would become a pilot and let my winged adventures enrich my life. A tree, a butterfly, and me. We laughed about our good fortune to live in the diversity of nature, a freedom not everybody gets to enjoy. And that's how we start.
I love that. One of the things that I asked you to do is to write basically your origin story, to tell us the story of when you were a little kid, what it was like to be you. And I think that choice of reading really opens us up to what it was like to be inside of little Judy's head all of those years ago, connected with nature and having conversations with the animals like Dr. Dolittle. I love that. And then in the second chapter, after the origin, we talk about your medicine. In other words, I suppose that's a healy-feely way or to say how you use your intuition now. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about an example of how your intuition supports the work that you're doing on the farm, on the ranch, or anywhere else that you see it really playing out in your life.
I'm going to say, beyond the traditional business management skills that I have, that one way this plays out is I realize I'm working with the 5 elements of agriculture. I'm working with the land, I'm working with the air, I'm working with the water, I'm working with the plants, and I'm working with the animals. How do you set up a harmonic resonance for all 5 of those elements to be working together, to disperse conflicting timelines, to really harmonize like a symphony? I looked out at a cornfield. I worked on this popcorn field with some of my energy skills this year, and I write about that in the second chapter of the book. But working with all the elements like a symphony, like a fine course. One of the ways I like to integrate the fine arts into nature and into ag. Corn harvest, for example, is like a ballet where the combine and the tractor dance down the field together. And then they split off and they do their own little dance and their own little routine before they come back and dance together. Just looking at what we do in a fun, new way. One thing we do here is that's over-exaggerated, I think, is we like to complain. We like to complain about the weather, the markets. Farmers have this reputation of the oh woe scenario to things. But it's not that at all. We enjoy a freedom out here. We enjoy integrating with nature out here. We basically get to live our own lives. We're pretty independent, which is fun. And I think that's the aspect I'd like to represent about agriculture. I'm tired of divisive hatred. I'm into harmonic resonance. Let's pick up the positive aspects of what we do out here and run with it.
I love that. I think that's so important. And it's reflective of your relationship with nature when you were a little girl, with all the joy and all the freedom that you were experiencing in that brief snip that you shared with us, and how you have integrated that along with all of your abilities and talents and everything that you've accomplished in your life into what I see as a pretty full expression of an integration of your intuitive intelligence with all of the business skills and the ag skills and everything else. So it just seems to me it adds a level of just joy to the process. And one of the things I love about the work that you were doing on your popcorn field is that you weren't just doing energy work on it or using your energy skills on it. You were actually measuring the outcomes.
Yes.
So can you tell us what happened to this field of popcorn as you were harmonizing it? And
a couple things that happened. We averaged about 3 inches more of rain this year than we normally do in a year that has rain. And it was really fun because the crew that was harvesting the field out in front of the house came in and said it was the best popcorn field ever. They got the best yields off that popcorn field that they'd ever seen. And they'd been at it for a number of years. I do have a measurable outcome in terms of that. And I hope the people that eat that popcorn out of that field enjoy it and have as much joy as I did working with it this year.
I'm looking forward to having some of the popcorn from your field when it's ready. And Judy, one last question for you. How are you different as a result of going through this author development process and becoming the author?
I think the part that's most different, this is going to seem silly after years of working where I've worked. There is a level of confidence and enjoyment in what I do now that wasn't there a year ago. I'm searching for words. I'm a little bit lost for the verbal context. I think my English teacher, who I hope is up in heaven now, is applauding and clapping because I think I've finally come to peace with the realization I am to write.
You are to write because you're a writer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We will put the links to buy the book in the comments, so you guys will have access to that. And be sure to follow Judy on social media. She's a real fun person to follow on Facebook. She's always posting memes and funny farm humor. And Judy, it's been so great to have you here with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. It's a lot of fun.